Hello, this is Brian Rowe with Mythic MTG Tech number 110, doing a review of the Modern Event deck. I cannot tell you how excited I am that this deck is finally coming out. I've been wishing for this for a long time, and I'm super happy to see it. We've got a really solid deck. A black-white token-based deck has some control and attrition elements. It's going to be able to compete out of the box in tournaments, and with $100 or $200, it's going to be an extremely competitive deck. I really like the build that they put together here. Let's look at it more in depth. On the playability side, they've got some wonderful cards like Lingering Souls, whose stock has just went up significantly since Deathrite was banned. We've got Elspeth, Knight-Errant in here, a casual favorite and a wonderful one-of in a competitive deck. Zealous Persecution is a really good choice when we're looking at a lot of robots or zoo floating around in the environment. Tidehollow Scullers is another really nice way to disrupt your opponent, and Path to Exile is the best removal in the modern environment outside of maybe Lightning Bolt. The best cards in this deck are clearly Feast of Famine, Inquisition of Kozilek, and Elspeth, Knight-Errant. Wonderful cards. I'm a little surprised, though, that there wasn't one more card in here that was a little bit higher in value, given that it's an $80 retail or $75 retail. Surprisingly, missing is any really good land. Marsh Flats is not in here, which has shocked a lot of people. The fetch lands need to be reprinted right away in large quantities. They're the choke point for Modern. I also would have really liked to have seen one of the filter lands in here. Very, very solid given the high mana requirements on the white cards. I think it would have been a perfect inclusion. Very surprised to see Isolated Chapel, which, although technically a $5 card, is extremely easy to get at $1 or $2 because everybody was selling them off. And a Pain land in here, nobody likes the Pain lands competitively. I think they're a very bad choice. I would avoid the Pain lands in here. This deck is very solid. It has some great matchups. I like its odds against Affinity, especially post-board. Against Zoo, it has a lot of blockers and some cards that can go over the top of blockers. Even against a Modern Rock deck, I really like this deck. Liliana's +1 is really bad against Lingering Souls, and the fact that you can fly over most of their creatures while also chump blocking their creatures infinitely gives you a really strong matchup there. There are a few bad matchups. Unfortunately, they're the two big combo decks currently in the environment. Splinter Twin and Birthing Pod are both rough matchups for this particular deck. They don't have any great answers for them main deck. And I think that's an oversight of the particular deck. You really are going to have to look at the sideboard and figure out what you can do to beat these two tier 1 decks, or what edits you can make to the main deck. The big question mark in my mind, though, is can it beat red, blue, white? In an attrition-based strategy, the Sphinx's Revelation decks are going to win. So you've got to play aggressively. Against the aggressive decks, though, that are playing Geist of St. Traft and Delver, this token-based strategy has a very good opportunity. So the type of red, blue, white deck that you're playing against is going to determine whether you are the aggressor or whether you're going to pull out a longer win. This deck was clearly inspired by Cabal Durwal's black-white token deck from the Modern Pro Tour portion of the Return to Ravnica Pro Tour. This particular deck is more honed, obviously, in being a deck from the Pro Tour, but this is the deck that I would look at when I was looking at improving this tokens deck. The value of the cards in this deck is extremely solid. I'm giving it an A- because there isn't a single large value card that makes it an instant buy, but the cards overall add up to about $200 in value. You've got two solid staples that are popular in EDH and in Modern, and you've got a lot of small playable cards that add up. Now, the Isolated Chapels, I would actually throw those out entirely when doing the math calculation. They're not going to be worth anything. But long-term, things like Windbrisk Heights, Path to Exile, and Inquisitions of Kozilek will definitely be valuable. If I was going to improve this deck, I would cut out some of the more questionable cards that they put in and streamline the deck more I really like the deck list that was mentioned earlier. The Martyr of Sand Squadron Hawk combo along with Honor the Pure is a great way to go. And Thoughtseize is just the best hand destruction in the environment. If you're playing against combo, which there's going to be a lot of combo in this upcoming Pro Tour season, Thoughtseize is what you want. At least sideboard, if not 4 of them main deck, and move the Inquisitions to side. To make this an absolute tier 1 deck, though, you must deal with Pod. Aven Mind Sensor is the best way to deal with Pod. You also want to improve the mana base. 8 fetch lands along with my absolute favorite of the new artwork, Godless Shrine, is highly recommended. Bremaz and Hero Bladehild are also strong contenders for this deck. I know both of these guys look a little bit fragile, but the fact that you've got hand destruction first, and then you can follow up with one of these houses to close the game quickly, it's really, really useful to be able to end the game before someone gets to their Sphinx's Revelation or their combo pieces. If you're looking for tips on how to play this deck or how to improve this deck, I strongly recommend checking out this video up on Wizards YouTube channel. I'll have a clickable link here in the video. It is very well done. It explains the basics. It also explains what was going on at the time. So keep that in mind as you look towards a metagame that currently includes things like fairies and Bitter Blossom. Quick side note on Bitter Blossom, a lot of people were hoping that Bitter Blossom would be in this deck. I'm glad that they left it out because it doesn't really fit the heavy white focus that's in this deck. There is another tokens deck that plays Bitter Blossom that is a very different strategy. Back to the video, watch the video. Amazing deck tech, really well explained. My recommendation is buy. This deck is incredible. $200 worth of cards for $75. If you can get it at MSRP, that's really, really good. Would I pay $150 for this deck? No way. The price of all of these cards is going to drop, but they'll come back up over time. If you want to get into Modern, now's the time to get in. Look for one of these event decks. Thanks. This has been Brian Rowe with Mythic MTG Tech, doing some videos this week, doing something crazy. In fact, I'm trying to do a video every day this week. I've never done 5 videos in 5 days. Let's see if I can make it through. This is day number 2. Hopefully this gets published and edited by the end of the day. Also, thanks to all the sponsors out there on Patreon. I hope you guys are enjoying the content. Anybody who is interested in seeing slides like these before they go up, I always share them with the Patreon sponsors in advance. Especially good way to see some of my speculation videos before the specs are announced publicly. Thanks. This has been Brian Rowe with Mythic MTG Tech.